What's up, everyone, and happy Thursday. We have one more day left to the trading week, so let's make it a good one. The market fell a little bit more today, and there was actually a whole bunch of crazy movement that happened in a bunch of different areas of the market, whether you're looking at some of the 2020 stocks like Peloton and QuantumScape. Those things blasted to the upside off of some very important news. But at the same time, some of the, more loved stocks of recent times, like Apple, are starting to feel the heat a little bit as they had their second downgrade just from this week. So that's pretty crazy as well. In this video, we're going to go over what's happening in the market right now, some of the top setups and predictions for tomorrow, and what to expect from the market, not only tomorrow, but throughout the rest of this month. We have a great video today. Stick with us all the way to the end. And with that being said, Tom, let's get right into today's episode.
Yeah, the overall market today was actually showing some nice signs of an uptrend at open today. And, I'm not really surprised, Mike, right? Like, we're going to see those slight pops back to the upside as the market falls here, but it ended up actually making a new low of day right around market close. And there was a pretty big support intraday right around like 468 to 468.20, and it just gave out like nothing was even there end of day. So I'm going to keep my eyes on that SPY tomorrow, Mike, as it's heading lower in after hours here, and we'll have to see if maybe tomorrow morning it keeps rejecting to the downside. Like you mentioned, there were so many big stocks affecting the market to the downside today, like Apple was down 1.27%, and Microsoft actually had a pretty bad day in its own right as well, and just so many other stocks like Tesla that are huge were just like chopping around. Same thing with Amazon. But Mike, the big players today were Peloton and QuantumScape, like you mentioned earlier, and Peloton had quite the move of 13.9%. Looks like they're actually partnering with TikTok as well, which is a pretty insane partnership if you ask me.
Yeah, when I woke up today, I surely was not expecting Peloton, of all companies out there, to have a partnership with TikTok. But I will say, Peloton has been struggling so much since the pandemic has kind of ended, and I feel like this partnership is really going to be good for Peloton. I feel like it's one of the best things that they can do in their situation. They're basically going to be posting a lot of content on TikTok in various different ways. And overall, they're just trying to make Peloton, somewhat back to what it used to be in terms of popularity and just interest in the company overall. So I'm very interested to see how this will end up playing out for Peloton. They have a lot of work to do to make this partnership worthwhile, but if they can execute correctly, I think it can definitely help out their company quite a bit. And when you look at Peloton's stock chart, Tom, it is nasty, like especially when you zoom out. Nowadays, the stock is trading for around $6 a share, and this thing, at one point in the good old days, used to be trading for $170 a share. So to say this thing has been taken to the woodshed would be an understatement. So we'll see what happens with this one, but in the short term, it is moving with some really good momentum.
It is, and I'll say this, it's been like finding a good support down here. Like whenever you zoom out, there's a pretty big support on the daily, like right around $4.30 to $4.50, and then it's been bouncing off of $5, holding well above here lately too. So there's a recent high up around like $6.68 to $6.70. It'd be cool if Peloton could at least get there tomorrow, or maybe even start to break up into that $7 range sometime soon. I think breaking that big resistance coming up will be huge, but that is definitely a huge, and I mean really big partnership for Peloton, guys. Now, I'm not saying that this is going to bring Peloton back up to its to the levels it once was, right? Like, I'm not sure it'll ever get back to 170. That might take like 20 years, but I think that this will at least help them in the short term a little bit. And I'll be real with you, Mike. I've been hoping that somebody buys Peloton out, like Nike or Apple or somebody like that, but it seems like Peloton just keeps trying to, stay in the game, and maybe they can end up having a nice resurgence. We've seen companies do it before, and maybe Peloton will be one that does it maybe this year.
Yeah, so we shall see, and we are going to talk about this stock a little bit more as the video goes on, because I do have a play with this one, so we'll circle back in just a second. But there was also some pretty big news with another 2020 stock, QuantumScape, which is ticker symbol QS. For those of you who remember, QuantumScape had an absolutely insane debut to the stock market. Basically in November of 2020, this thing went from $13 a share all the way up to 130 just over the course of a couple weeks. And honestly, it kind of has a very similar looking chart to Peloton, as it just faded down from there. And kind of like the same situation, they're popping to the upside off of some pretty good news. And Tom, this news is pretty interesting, so fill us in.
Yeah, it is. So QuantumScape is actually making some solid state batteries, and they're actually passing some pretty good tests with a company called PowerCo, which is a subsidiary of Volkswagen. So for people who don't know, Tesla, they use battery packs, right? Well, what QuantumScape has done is they actually came out with some solid state batteries, which are huge, and they're saying that they could go up to 500,000 kilometers without range loss. And they've been doing tests on these for a few months, but this is what the pack will look like right here. I'm circling it in blue. If you go look at batteries that Tesla and other people use, their batteries are a lot different, right? These solid state batteries will be pretty insane. And like they're saying here, you could go through 1,000 charge cycles without seeing any capacity loss or anything like that. And what's the big thing that people are pissed about whenever you bring up EVs? They go, that can't replace my truck or my car because I'm not going to sit and wait for it to charge forever every 300 miles, right? And that's what everyone complains about. And if QuantumScape can come up with some batteries like this, that could be huge and possibly even change the EV game a little bit. So I'm going to have my eyes very, very closely on QuantumScape, Mike. This is some huge news, and man, they've been running up very well today. They hit $10 and came right back down, but wow, I mean, it was a wild ride for them with this news.
Exactly. So the news is really good overall, but they still have a lot of actual work to do to, justify a, justify their, improvements to their company overall. But in terms of short-term trades and all that good stuff, it's just a game of momentum at this point for QuantumScape. So as long as it keeps up that bullish momentum, it has potential to run even more. And as Tom has been circling on the charts, QuantumScape has a pretty decent history of going on a multi-day to multi-week runs. So either way with this one, it is a game of momentum at this point. The longer it stays with this level of price action, the more opportunity it has. But at the same time, if the market opens up tomorrow and this stock just gets rejected super hard, then, don't try and force a setup that's not there.
Yeah, exactly. And, talking about setups and just going through the price action of QuantumScape, Mike, I'm going to bring up Bookmap today because the price action on this one was amazing, and we could actually use this a little bit tomorrow as well. And I know a lot of people like Bookmap, and they like to see what's going on here. So we saw this morning, Mike, QS broke above $8.50. That was a huge level. Look on the book map. I'm circling it and drawing arrows right there. You can see that big, thick red line. That was thousands of shares stacked up on QS. And once that broke, you can see all these nice volume dots. We saw a ton of upwards volatility come flying into this stock, and it got pushed pretty high up to $9.50 and then even $10 up at the high of day today. And Mike, look at $10 up there. That's a pretty solid resistance. If we're able to break that tomorrow, that could maybe be a good area where you could maybe get into a breakout play on QS, because that is a huge whole dollar mark, and I'm sure there'll be even some psychological movement there too, given that it's $10 even. But I love looking at the book map, Mike, and it really helps to see this price action happen throughout the day. Like if you would have seen that today with QS and you would have seen that break, it might have given you that extra push to maybe get into that stock. So make sure you guys check out Bookmap. There's links down below, and it was good kind of going over this one. It's always fun to see the intraday price action and where the big breakouts really occurred.
And what's even crazier, Tom, is the QuantumScape call options, at least a couple of them, 12x'd just from open today. So that's pretty crazy. The call options just blasted to the upside, and 12x is a pretty good amount, especially for one day. And, like you said, by looking at those crucial breakout points, like $8.50 with Bookmap, it literally shows you the level where sellers are just sitting there waiting. And once that level was broken, it was off to the races from there. And then everyone knew ahead of time where the key resistance was, hint, hint, $10. And that was the key resistance of the day, and that was the point that the stock couldn't get above. So Bookmap is a great tool. It lets you see where the buyers and sellers are at. There's basically nothing else out there like it, and if you want to try it out, check out the first link in the description in the comments down below. You will save using our link, but back to some other crazy things that happened today. We had the powerhouse Apple get downgraded again, Tom, which is pretty rare to see for multiple reasons. One, Apple is almost always talked about in a positive manner. And then on top of that, it's pretty rare to see Apple get downgraded for the second time in 1 week. So, this news is something you don't see often. And, fill us in, Tom. What do you see in here?
Yeah, it's pretty rough. Piper Sandler ended up downgrading Apple to neutral from overweight. And, again, they're citing that iPhone demand. And it's a terrible thing to see for Apple right now. They are definitely going through a bit of a volatile stretch of their company's history, right? Like, they've had a history of just being the powerhouse. Nothing stops Apple, right? But now, man, apparently China's stopping Apple. We're getting these the bad iPhone sales coming out. And then even, Mike, we can go over to the dashboard here, and we can see that at the top right of your screen, quarter over quarter, I mean, this is very lackluster growth from Apple over the past couple years, guys. Like, if we go out to even something like Tesla, for example, even, let's just say that, even their growth looks a lot better, right? Apple's been just really, really stuck here. So going back to Apple on the dashboard, Mike, that revenue has just been not growing at all. It's actually been falling slightly too. If we change this over to the annual and we go back, bam, look at that. 2023 actually had less revenue than 2022, which is a pretty bad thing to say for such a powerhouse like Apple, right? Like, you would expect them to continue up with that growth, but I don't know, maybe they're peaking out here for a little while, Mike, and I'm really not surprised either. Like, we go out to the daily chart of Apple and we zoom out, I mean, it is up a ton from the low at the beginning of the year 2023, and it even made new all-time highs this year. So, pullbacks are likely whenever stocks move like this.
Yeah, and I know a bunch of people to start out 2024 are just mind blown how the market could possibly be falling. But in reality, I saw a very, interesting chart today that shows while January since 1950 has been a pretty good month, over the past 20 years, January really hasn't been all that. January's just been an okay month. So a lot of the good Januaries happened a while ago, to say it bluntly, I guess you can say. And then on top of that, Januaries during an election year haven't been all that great either.
Yeah, I know, and I love seeing this election year data, because then look at February. I mean, February is even pretty down too. So, I'm really worried about the market here to start the year, Mike. Like, we go out to that SPY daily chart and, you zoom out and it's like SPY might actually be double topping up here. It's starting to form, and at least if it's not going to be a true double top and we're just going to chop around here, right? At least we are finding that chop zone and we're like, hey, it could get choppy here. It might be a better time to try to trade within a channel or something along those lines. But it's definitely something that I think a lot of traders are getting worried about. And, we've been talking about this for a little while now as the SPY's been running up towards this high. So, I don't want to be like that guy being like, oh, we said it, but, we were definitely warning of this possibility coming in, Mike, and it looks like it's starting to play out a little bit, at least in the short term, right? We could always break back up soon, but man, this seems like a pretty stiff resistance to get through overhead on many stocks too. Like, don't forget, Apple, Nvidia, they're all rejecting off big levels. Like, Apple was at 200, Nvidia was at 500, so it seems like everything's all coming together at once, isn't it, Mike? And then the snowball effect is starting to come into play.
Exactly. And then there's also another chart that I think most people should just print out and leave on their desk. And basically it shows that, volatility is normal. Like, we could see that, from data going all the way back to 1928. A lot of times we show data going back to 1950, but now we're going way back, all the way up to 1928. We could see that, a 3% dip happens around like 7 times a year. A 5% dip happens like 3.5 times a year. A 10% dip happens most of the time at least once a year. And then, about every 2 years, there's a 15% dip. And around every 3.5 years, there's a 20% dip. So to see the very small dip that we saw so far is not only normal, but it's also expected.
Exactly. And, we actually saw a 10% dip last year. A 10% dip is actually technically a correction, and we saw that happen in 2022. And I'm curious what's going to happen here. I meant in 2023, sorry. But I'm curious what's going to happen here in 2024, Mike, because, man, I feel like the market could end up going higher, but these first couple months are definitely a little bit scary, especially when we see that data going back to January showing that over the past few years, it's not really that good. And then the election year data suggests that the beginning of the year generally isn't the best either. So, man, it's just like there's so much data out there suggesting that there could be some type of possible pullback coming in. And I love seeing this, Mike, because I could not believe that there's a 15% pullback every 2 years. And then when I go back on the chart of SPY, I'm like, wow, there actually kind of is. It's actually not as uncommon as you'd think.
Yep, no doubt about that, Tom, but let's get right into some setups for tomorrow, right? There's been a lot of action today, so let's get into that good stuff. One stock I'm watching very closely is Peloton, and it's to the upside. News with TikTok is among the best news that this company can get, besides, a couple other exceptions, but some great volume flowed into this one today. The stock's already moving with some great price action, and in the past, when it has popped in a big way, a lot of times it has continued for multiple days and weeks after the fact. So either way, I am watching Peloton to the upside. It doesn't mean Peloton has to rise tomorrow, but I think for tomorrow and the next couple of trading days, there's a pretty good shot that Peloton can continue to the upside.
Yeah, and I love the way it closed today. It stayed up around highs. It's not like it dipped all the way back down to like 580 or anything. Held up very, very nicely. So I will definitely be keeping it on the radar tomorrow too. And Mike, both of my plays today are a little bit negative, I guess. They're both obviously bearish. But my first one's Microsoft. They had a pretty bad day today, and they're actually sitting right around recent support, which is almost triple bottoming if you count that low in after hours here. I'll be watching for them to break below 367. If they get down under there, I'll be looking for puts. A lot of these big tech stocks have been down a lot lately, and why go against the trend, right? So if that breaks, go ahead and watch it down. Now, if we start to see these stocks uptrending tomorrow, kind of like we did early on this morning, then you might just want to wait, set an alert there, wait for that lower trend level to break. But until we see that support break, I'm just going to wait it out. But once it breaks, I think the floodgates will open, kind of like we saw today whenever support broke. It was like Microsoft really sold off hard below 370.
No doubt about that. Another stock I'm watching pretty closely is very similar to your Microsoft setup, but it's actually Google with an L. And basically, Google had a decent down day today. The daily chart looks pretty brutal, and I think there's a good chance that this one can continue lower. So I will be watching this one in a bearish way going into tomorrow, but I really would like to see a break below 136, 25 or so. And then from that point, we can adjust from there. But overall, it has been relatively weak lately, and it's kind of triple bottoming off of this 136.50 area over the past 3 days or so.
Yeah, it is. It's very similar to that Microsoft setup, and I feel like a lot of these stocks are giving, the supports are breaking, and it seems like it's happening on all of them at one time, right? And that's how it was on the bull trend too. Whenever all these stocks were running up at once, it's like everybody's happy. They have that euphoric uptrend starts to come in, but now that we see these stocks falling, it's like that snowball is sending them to the downside. And I'm going to keep my eyes on Tesla tomorrow as well. They actually held up a little bit better today. They were almost green, actually, which is a big surprise to me, but they fell off quite a bit end of day. If they can get under this 237.50 to 237 support, I'm going to eye up puts on them too. I feel like it's almost like the same setup like Microsoft and and Google again, Mike, but it's Tesla. It's a bit more of a wild stock, and I feel like that it could have a bit more potential to the downside maybe than some of those others. So I'll keep it on the radar for tomorrow, and if it breaks, then go ahead and watch that momentum to the downside.
Boom. All right, well, let's get right into the momentum plays then. And with the first one, we have NVIDIA to the downside.
NVDA, yeah, pretty crazy stock. Actually, one of the only green stocks today, but don't let that worry you for tomorrow. I think there still could be a lot of bearishness come in here. If they break under 478.90 intraday, just under 479, then go ahead and look at puts tomorrow. And I think they could easily touch 474 or even break lower if we see like Apple, Microsoft, and the rest doing that. So really have an eye on 478.90.
All right, with the next one, we have Amazon also to the downside.
Yeah, Amazon was really rough. Now, this is a stock where support actually did give out this morning, and you guys can see how drastic that was when that support gave out. So go ahead and make them break down below 143.60, just under that 144 low of day.
All right, and then with the last one, we have Apple for both directions.
Yeah, Apple, let's see what they can do tomorrow. Hopefully they can break under 181. That would be a nice opportunity for puts to the downside. But if they break this like intraday double top right around 183.10, then go ahead and look at calls.
All right, so we have that upside level for calls, and we have the downside level for puts, and this is for Apple. Don't forget about the downside plays with Amazon and NVIDIA. If they break below those downside levels, we're watching them for puts, and for these three stocks, they are only potential trades if they break the levels Tom listed. If they don't break, then find a new setup. But let's get right into today's big money $665,000 trade of the day, and we are looking at another pretty crazy stock, and that is Moderna. So this stock has been flying high over the past couple of weeks, and it's now above that $100 level. And today we saw a big money trader put around, like I said, 665 grand into the 120 strike call options that expire on March 15th of 2024. Now, these call options are a little bit out of the money, which, makes the trade a little bit riskier. They have some time to them, which is good, but the stock is also a little bit overbought in the short term, as it basically went from around like $65 a share all the way up to highs of $115 a share just since like the beginning of November. So the stock is a little bit overbought in the short term. So overall, it's not a bad setup, but I will say, Tom, it definitely is risk. It's more risky than most other big money trades.
Yeah, it is. And Moderna had that good volatility earlier in the week, and I feel like that even though there's been a couple days of like consolidation here, I feel like that it could start uptrending again. Like that was such a big move. Maybe it's just seeing a couple days of consolidation, and then we'll eventually retest that high of like 115 and then start to break back out. That news earlier in the week with Moderna was pretty big. People are looking at their vaccines and just everything that they're doing as a company and thinking that they could do a little bit better. So maybe we'll see some buyers come back, but it's definitely an interesting big money play given that news earlier in the week, Mike. And I would say this, whoever got into this, I'm wondering if that news influenced them at all, because they entered it today on this dip. Maybe they're seeing this dip as a good opportunity here in the short term to kind of buy it up on the dip. I know a lot of people love to buy the dips out there, and I'm sure the big money is no exception.
Exactly. But with everything being said, the week has been pretty exciting so far, especially on the news side of things. And, we're starting to see a lot of great movement, like, especially with some of these like individual stocks, but even with the market overall, it's healthy to see a pullback like this. No one, you can't just go straight up every single day for, months straight, right? So overall, it should be pretty exciting over the next couple of days and weeks. I'm super pumped up, and for tomorrow, Tom, there is some economic data set to release as well.
Yeah, there is. So tomorrow we're going to be getting the non-farm payrolls early on in the morning and the unemployment rate 1 hour before the market opens at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time. So be on the lookout for that. And then we're going to get the ISM Services PMI at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So there's quite a bit of data tomorrow, Mike. These are some jobs numbers, and we'll see exactly how the market takes it. You know, sometimes it takes these job numbers, like if it misses the forecast by quite a bit or something, it could cause a lot of volatility to come in. So be ready 1 hour before open and then at 10 a.m. Eastern time.
Sounds good. Well, again, if you guys want to be able to see what's actually happening in the markets behind the scenes, definitely check out that first link in the description in the comments down below to use Bookmap, like we showed on the QS example today, where the options popped up by like 12x. You know, you could see where the buyers and sellers are actually at, and you could see the key breakpoints that need to be broken in order for a true breakout to happen. At the same time, you can see those hidden resistance points, and it really shows you like on a deeper level what is actually happening behind the scenes. I definitely recommend it, and you will save if you use our link down below. It's great, and honestly, there's not really anything else out there like it. I haven't even seen anything close to it, so check it out. But besides that, let's have an amazing end to the week.